Smacking a youngster on the head brings him to his senses. His father expressed his disappointment, claiming that he was a shame to the family. However, the question of in the Kingdom of Crisis. As the army marches on the northern border, they were unaware that Urine possessed mastery over every combat skill in the globe. Dear Duke Ellen shocks and exclaims incredulously, ascending zombies shamble over to meet them. According to Ellen, their numbers are more than he had anticipated, and they transport the deadly fog of nightmares. The Duke is taken aback when a soldier orders him to look up. Among them is Durian, a death knight. That includes no one could promise triumph over him, not even the 10 living Heil Knights. According to him, they are hopeless right now, and they would be wise to pull back and wait for a moment. The wall is already broken, and their kingdom will be destroyed if the gate collapses. According to Ellen, they have to stop them now, no matter what it takes. However, at that moment, an object hurtles past them. On the battlefield, a young guy swoops with his scarlet cape. The soldier acknowledges Ellen's concerns as she queries the reckless advancer, his person. The soul fighter armed with daggers is their reinforcement from the southern cliffs, the Marks. The soldier makes an effort to claim that Durian is his adversary. The only way a blade could possibly do harm would be to thrust it into zombified man. The undead's body is severed as it sinks in. Astonished, the alien looks to the knight, who questions whether Durian was merging. He is curious as to how it's even feasible. The horrifying undead bodies start to melt as Urine hurls his daggers, one after the other. He single-handedly melted them all, leaving everyone to question if he is a celestial messenger. Ideas, what a bunch of idiots. Everything that was beneficial to his physical health, he would simply keep for himself. 6 months prior. The young man cracks open his eyes. As a guy approaches the young master, he finds himself wondering where he is. Raises his brow and remarks, she's stunning, but her attire is unfamiliar, and she brandishes a blade. This time around, the woman was planning to contact the priest, so she inquires as to how the young master is doing. P lengthens his hand, attracting the attention of the woman. He states that he simply wants to inquire about something, but the girl has already departed. Rising from his slumber, he questions his very whereabouts, that is, until he turns to the side and sees his overweight reflection in the cup. He misses his youthful, attractive self and why he become an overweight kid. In an effort to numb himself, the young man attempts to rationalize this as a dream. Perhaps he will awaken if he goes to sleep again. A priest comes up to the young master and announces that he has awakened at last. At the same time, a guy walks into the room and slurs him because the shame that stained his family's reputation has now come to light. The clergyman informs his master that he has only recently awakened and sanctions can be postponed. The priest responds to the man's slight grumbling by saying that, since he thrashed him till he passed out, he isn't really cause harm. It is a relief that his mind is stable and that most of his wounds have healed. But the Lord yells out that he would rather have him murdered for attempting to attack his fiancée. He is vicious. Time for him to mature. He's 19 years old now. Even his little sibling has reawakened his aura, while their older sibling remains overweight and devoid of any vitality. The P does it again, totally taken aback. The Lord then turns to tell that he must see her and implore for forgiveness. His dad says it's his wife Ophelia, and he threatens to kill her if she doesn't forgive him when she pees in her pee. Actually face punishment. The protagonist agrees after being asked if he comprehends. The Lord laments the fact that, nonetheless, he must cease bringing shame by the name of their ancestors. Worried that this is who he is, Ear quakes in his boots and thinks that Wellington Rocks must be him. Above all, takes exception at being addressed by his name, accusing him of being a brat and threatening to smack him across the face for the audacity to do so. It was the large guy who lost. While a few seconds passed, there is no relief for the Lord from the priest's attempts to reassure him. P doesn't think it's possible. Surely this is a fantasize about. After regaining consciousness, he rises up, taken aback. Why he hasn't awoken in the actual world is a mystery to him. A woman comes up to him and asks if at long last, he's awake. After the woman responds to Aaron's urine, she starts to wonder why he isn't making any noise. Additional communication. Since our hero got knocked unconscious after messing with Ilya, he wonders if he's stuck there. Yes, Aaron says, but he wants to know why he's acting so civilized now. Urine concurs and inquires about the veracity of his beating. In that way, this is something the woman has confirmed, and she goes on to say that he attacked Lady Ilya, who then beat him until he passed out. Remove it. The protagonist yells out that he's screwed because there was no romantic interest, which leaves the girl confused. Doubt. Even though he wasn't the main character, he had somehow become a character in the web novel he had written, instead of being discarded villain who humiliates the protagonist before tragically dying. Angry that this had to not be his destiny, a young woman's master is summoned by Aaron. However, he can't stop insisting that it wasn't a web song. A term the lady had never heard of. The body he had was worthless trash, according to Urine. No, a life lived solely for the honor of his family, devoid of any talent, skill, or effort. The protagonist ends his engagement to him, attempting to exact revenge by ambushing the protagonist, only to be defeated once more. His tragic demise occurs during a secret passageway. Given the world's inherent instability, Urine questions how he will endure, conveying the idea that it's an imaginary realm, and his knowledge of this chubby guy's skills is completely lacking. The knowledge of the fading experiences and items that hero has not acquired it as of yet. As a result, he gets out of bed and resolves to get ready right away. He has trouble moving forward because his heavy physical form. Is the young master okay? Aaron wants to know. Even though Urine says, certainly not. It does observe something else. He is advised to take a break by the female. Even though he frowned previously, our hero now realizes that he was actually blind to it. Next to him on his system screen, Aaron. Please. Aura adaptation, clear mind mirror, and fast sword are the girl's skills, according to the text. The girl urgently summons the youthful master again. Jurgen flatly rejects it, claiming that he was briefly insane but is now perfectly okay and that she need to show there, on the job. The protagonist observes as Aaron accepts and turns to go. His thoughts turn to Swift's blade. In the beginning, Aaron was a far more powerful and gifted figure than ordinary knights, but now he is curious about the value of affinity is 0. Could it be a a dating simulator that he played too many times. He can't help but wonder, that kind of game, what kind of world building is this? He wants to know. After giving it some thought, our hero, the crucial aspect was not Er's typical conduct nor the non-negative affinity. Perceiving his own being as he stands in front of the mirror, patiently waiting for the system screen to load, he lets out a cry of approval and examines his status screen with a combination of creativity, skill, and the 4 elements. Family Tang. He believes he possesses unique skills, but only the 4 winds of the Tang family can use them. It was taken from that wuxia web song that he adored due to the stunning beauty of the protagonist. They are the clan that is most knowledgeable on poisons and secret weapons. He opts to hold off on taking action until he learns the 4 heavens martial arts from the Tang clan. Otherwise, the world building was uneven. A good possibility of surviving there. A famous sect in Wuxia novels 4 Heavens province practiced this martial technique, which was associated with a wide range of poisons and focused on covert assassination. Even while he doesn't understand its use in this supposedly fantastical medieval world, he knows that it will allow him to access his abilities. If Aaron doesn't summon her lord, Wellington will go to his room. Inquiring about his son's awakening, he approaches the girl, confirms. Wellington wants to know his appearance. According to Aaron, he still doesn't appear to be fully recovered. He stumbled when he attempted to rise, and it appeared that his overall health was not good. According to Wellington, his father Ew assured him that the wound was superficial, but his kid seemed a bit off-kilter because in the past, he would have thrown a tantrum if told to ask Ilya for forgiveness. Strangely, he had suddenly accepted it. There has been no shift in his character. Truly, he was taken aback. He would likely be enraged, out for vengeance against Ilya. According to Aaron, her young master will start to feel better soon. The girl is taken aback as Wellington abruptly turns away, clearly irritated. Even his own father, he claims, had given up on him. However, she persisted in thinking he should feel sorry for her and allow her to carry out her nightly dreams, considering how challenging it was to remain under his weight, contrary to Aaron's belief. Though, it was difficult to put my finger on it, but today the young master appeared different. When asked what he was earlier, Aaron yelled out, the subject at hand. The main character said he simply wanted to get some exercise and that she should lead the way. When Aaron asked himself whether he was serious about train at this time, an ear verified it by inquiring about the issue. The ability to perceive statuses was bestowed upon him by his creator, yet he was lacked the knowledge necessary to access the martial arts of the Sichuan Tang clan. Perhaps it was because of his weight. Therefore, for the time being, he would simply struggle to discover a solution. The size of many stadiums. According to Nur, this estate was enormous, and he was already drained. But no matter how often he exercised in his room, the fat would always find a way to return. Undoubtedly, he had no choice but to stop doing my home workouts. Furthermore, every single servant he came across displayed a profound dislike for him. But given the consistency of their pee, he couldn't hold it against them. Urine wanted to know whether they were getting close, so they kept on going. Aaron informed them that we were getting close. Even though most knights utilized the first 2 training centers, this one was number 3. The P out of the blue saw a figure standing before him. The affinity was 91. And he knew it was going to send him to his grave. It was this man, Ria, who yelled when he arrived in the training hall. The young master wondered what had brought him there. He was instantly identified by the man's urine, and chuckled and expressed his gratitude that the young master remembered him. With a look at the blade, Urine aggrieved, taken aback. Subsequently, he abruptly summoned Aaron. He wanted to know whether there was a history between them, inquiring about his potential, completely forgotten. In the past, when the Marquis insisted that he undergo training, the enraged young master referred to Ria as a small rodent species. The Marquis eventually gave up trying to force Ria to practice after he laughed and swung his sword, the sound of P to be utterly fruitless. While thinking about this useless dweeb, Ria peered over the corner of his eye and saw him. The P determined to flee. He was inquiring about the availability of an alternative training hall, since he preferred to work independently. Hello, Aaron! Claimed to be the 4th hall, but the distance and quality of the materials made it seem like it was definitely deserted. The P said that it was ideal and that he ought to visit the place because, as he was planning to shed pounds, he ought to be thorough. He was instructed to follow by the bodyguard, who consented. Urine was panting severely from the trek as she showed him the 4th training hall. He glanced down and saw a table with tools, and he figured the Sichuan Tang. He thought he'd give staring at the targets ahead of him a shot because his clan was known for its knife-throwing prowess. Aiming Urine, it raised the blade to meet his face and raised it to one of their heads. He threw it with all his might after bringing his arm back. However, the blade just rebounded off the floor, missing its mark. He was upset because he had assumed he could open it, but then he saw Aaron following close behind. He then came up with a reason, claiming it was all in good fun. He thought doing laps around the hall would help him develop his stamina. His independence in training allowed Aaron was free to act any way she liked. Wellington found this completely unbelievable since Urine had attended the training, began to work diligently on the ground. He found it peculiar and wondered how much longer it would persist. After 3 weeks, the Lord was saying that he hadn't slowed down his workout for 3 weeks straight. The young man looked drastically different after losing a significant amount of weight. As expecting from his son, who was quite attractive despite his weight, he questioned whether he had actually grown up. He mistakenly believed that he had slimmed down significantly. The method utilized by the Sichuan Tang family, however, remained unlocked. After a month of trying, if it did not succeed, instead, he would appropriate the protagonist's fortunate experiences. The young man expressed his gratitude to Aaron, who had unexpectedly shown up, claiming to have brought dinner. Shireen soup, which is rich in nutrients and great for fat burning and muscle growth, was the dinner. When it came to on the meal and whether or not Aaron had grown bored with it, the main character admitted he went 3 weeks without food. The young woman then yelled out to the novice instructor. She was curious as to whether his true desire was to become a knight or to shed a few pounds. In response, Urian said he aspired to the rank of knight, and Aaron legend has it that the mightiest marquis would chow down on chine soup after a day of training in this region. Therefore, it is incumbent upon the youthful coach to quit moaning. He needs to finish the soup all at once. The commands were unwillingly accepted by Urian, imagining himself to be alive and understanding. But he pondered the nature of the ancient practice at hand. He continued to eat the soup because it had aided his weight loss efforts. I'd probably just eat it right now. He took a spoonful and put it to his lips. Urian observed a change and pondered its nature. Since this very day, the flavor of the churn soup was little off. He was alerted by a system screen that he had consumed poison. But another notice also came in a sequential order. The protagonist has accomplished what was needed to unleash the Sichuan Tang, expertise inside a clan. The protagonist was completely taken aback by the fact that this talent had been unlocked. Out of nowhere, the Marquis was informed to come inside after hearing a knock on his door. His wife had previously mentioned that she had brought tea. His second wife Ka wanted to know what he was staring at with such intensity. In response, Wellington said he was merely appreciating the garden's aesthetic value. Kai assured us that she was handling the situation personally by tremendous focus, and her spouse complimented her on her impressive abilities. But his spouse abruptly grabbed him and began to query as he had previously said, would select Colin to be his hairstyle. Since the decision had already been made, it would be wise to move swiftly. Wellington fought back. Kay was summoned from the embrace as a warning that it would require a bit more time, since he had previously stated that he will be named last month. Even though she had likely heard it before, the Lord verified it. It appeared as though Urian had dawned on him that he was the firstborn of House Rox's children. He just needs to put in the work to become, competent here. Even Ka, who had heard a great deal, admitted that it was real. Despite her concerns, he appeared to have made a full recovery, at the very least, which is good news for her spouse. He thought it was humorous to imagine that he woke up after being battered by his fiancée. However, it arrived inquired as to his plans for the hair. Lord Urian said that it would be wise to keep an eye on him for a while, since he had only been training for 3 weeks. For a while. But he did vow to swiftly relinquish the hair title to Colin in the event that Urian returned to his ancient ways. According to Kaz, she was going to her room, initially, and he ought to do his tasks without delay. As she finally left the Duke's room, she clenched her jaw in frustration. She instructed Urian to be calm and wait for something to happen, returning to his chamber. Our hero marveled at the fact that he had obtained the ability. The Sichuan Tang family, he continued, were experts in poison, and the key to unlocking it was to consume venom. While he pondered, he double-checked the soup's progress. A symbol was on it, and he yearned to understood what lay above it. As I stared at it, the words slid down. He noticed that it even featured a Hyanggang herb that is utilized for incapacity to move. It appeared like the young man was really into it, but Aaron was perplexed and wanted to know why the young master wasn't eating. He then proceeded to bring another tablespoon to his mouth, indicating that he would eat. He pondered for an additional moment as he chewed. I don't know who poisoned it, because poison rarely killed Urian. There was a noticeable shift in the momentum of the story. Something still hadn't transpired, he realized suddenly. Along with Colin, he recalled his father. The fact that his dad hasn't decided what to call Colin's hairstyle or whether it's a result of his training. No matter what, this is in the meal likely arrived from that direction. Gulping down the remaining portion. Out of nowhere, a different system screen sprang up on his screen. It notified that the requirements for the weak paralysis toxin had been fulfilled. After finishing his meal, the young man made an announcement. I felt like crying because this was that good. Shock swept across Aaron. Urian requested if she may go since he needed some time to himself. The security guard I concur. Before bid her goodnight, she advised him to get some sleep because they will see each other again tomorrow. Upon her exit from the room, gazing into the reflection, the youth pivoted towards the vanity. He then promised to see how the Sichuan Tang family was doing. Suddenly, he gave the order for the Eye of Creation to materialize. A system was forced to he was no longer considered to be in synchronization, as the rate had fallen to 97. A smart interface was indicated by Urian. Plus, if his attention was drawn to his newfound abilities in poison, martial arts, and secret weaponry were revealed to him alone on the part marked with a plus icon. To start with, he resolved to investigate that. He lacked an internal technique and could only use the weak paralysis skill. Though the hero warned him to scroll down till he found the poison, which he should do in abundance. The last poison was opacity. This necessitates that you'll need to unlock the first ones first because the system is leveled. Even with paralysis, he must accomplish the most fundamental task, a method employed internally. Since the Tang family of Sichuan stored toxins in their internal energy, this made perfect sense. Meanwhile, he would investigate Kung Fu, choose from 3 different martial arts styles, Thunder Needle, the Dark Poison Arts, when celestial force of 10,000 toxins. According to him, it was a no-brainer, particularly for Wuya fans. Martial arts, deadly black toxin artistry centers on toxicity. Hidden equipment is the main focus of the Thunder Needle martial art, and the heavenly power of 10,000 poisons method is more time-consuming to perfect, but it grants him access to better poison and concealed weaponry. Deciding with that method immediately, the system directed energy towards him. Remarkably, it was confirmed by Urian. One of the method's mantras were deeply ingrained in his consciousness. At this same moment, he had to attempt to recirculate the energy. After removing his shirt whilst perched on the bed, he channeled his energy into his dantian. A peculiar flow was felt all over the young man's body. I think this is Kwai. In order to help, he can strengthen himself from the inside out by releasing it through his meridians and storing it in his dantian. The young man completed his concentration the following day. He shouted, "Wow, it was amazing." The martial arts books weren't exaggerating when they said you have to train nonstop. Here was the truth, and he felt completely unwearied. His body, however, was brimming with vitality. He sensed a current of Huey all about him. He was able to count the birds outside the window without lifting a finger. In his dantian, he could also feel a warm energy. Now, if he were to spin about in his thoughts, when he wasn't using a mirror, the status window would pop up and reveal that his technique had earned him 1 star. An overwhelming sense of outside the door, a comforting presence. He watched as Aaron pried it open, and he heard her yell out to her youthful lord, had woken him up. However, he obviously did not get any sleep because he appeared unharmed. Ear said that it was only a coincidence. In her defense, she insisted it wasn't adequate, and he ought to get some sleep in preparation for training today. The main character rejected the idea, claiming he was already on his way. His health was excellent, and he felt fantastic, hence, he needed to engage in training. She would make breakfast first, Aaron told him, and he agreed, wondering when she might be able to. Muscle growth had begun in the youthful master. Near the daggers on the table, outside the training grounds, Urine drew near. He barely spoke, that's right. During his time, ready to hurl a dagger, he took stock of something different. He could see a crosshair, as in first-person shooters, directly in front of him, gaming consoles. Consequently, he would aim squarely at the objective. As Aaron worriedly observed, he moved his body swiftly. A purple glow was released as the weapon, propelled by urine, struck its target. The guard was amazed when he claimed he had actually done it. Our hero further disclosed the system's concealed weaponry. Inquiring about the young master's recent actions, Aaron yelled out to him. In response, our hero said that he also had no idea and had hoped to see some progress from our training session last month. There is no way, she said, developing into fully shock. Seeing her in this state was a first for Ur, and he pondered whether he should give it another go. While he was in yet again the blade, he felt as though his own strength was unleashed as he hurled himself at something. Danchin, which paid off as he threw with more power and speed this time. The dagger was embedded in it when he hurled it again at the target. In fact, the end goal split in two. The protagonist maintained a smile while Aaron was completely taken aback by this. In his mind, playing with aim like a video game was essentially cheating. You won't believe this, but he actually won the first-person shooter battle attack way back when. Online calf competition. Aaron wanted to know what the fuck that was. The hero was curious as to whether she had any new feelings for him, and the officer rephrased her initial inquiry. Aside from the fact that he had shed more pounds than the day before, she gave her approval. She was at a loss for words, and our hero sought her opinion on the matter of weight loss. It was corroborated by Aaron, who claimed to have been training daily and consuming Sharon's soup. Yet, he had undergone much more transformation today, noticeably. Perplexed, our hero questioned whether she was unable to sense the subtle currents of energy within his own being. This meant that no one could detect his usage of internal energy in this world, and he was the only one who could. Thus, he had amassed tremendous authority. With a laugh, he wondered whether he ought to keep on practicing. Twice in a row, he effortlessly hit the mark. On this occasion, he promised himself he would do things differently. In it, he placed one stab another with a dagger. He astonished his guard once again by declaring it perfect. She wanted to know if she might give it a shot once. Dagger in hand, aimed serenely. Despite the girl's best efforts, the ball never even touched the side of the target. Urine said, the girl's frustration level rose as she realized she couldn't accomplish stuff. Subsequently, something caught the young man's eye. The appearance of a status window out of her reach. The direct cut skill was now hers to use. It may be executed with any weapon, the protagonist reiterated. Claiming to have would give it a try, and Aaron would get irritated because she wasn't seeing any results. He was debating whether or not to give this a go. For the time being, he asked Aaron to step aside. Whatever he held in his hand was a mystery to her. With a shattered wooden blade in his grasp, our hero lifted it to the heavens. Moment, experiencing a surge of vitality coursing through his entire being as it leaves his hands and enters his arms. He then proceeded to launch it, cutting directly. The damage the blade pierced through the target's center and smashed everything in its path. Aaron was taken aback and inquired, I don't even know what that was. Ur said he wasn't sure and said that the young master's abilities might have been due to practice. When asked about the nature of his strength, the bodyguard, retorted that such a thing could never happen. He allegedly knew she was going to tell her father about her training, and the protagonist knew this too. He was in need of a favor, then. He hoped she would remain quiet about this for the time being. Aaron had doubts about this, and Ur mentioned that he was currently conducting tests and would provide an explanation later on, so she should hold off. She uncomplicatedly decided, and this day came to a close. The housekeeping crew said their goodbyes, complimented each other on their job, and promised to see each other tomorrow. The Peru, the male, went through the identical process and just accepted it. He shifted his course as he walked serenely past. The P kept a distant gaze on him. Subsequently, he chose to employ the creator's gaze against himself. It was Peru, a place where no emotion existed. A lethal combination of dexterity and speed. According to Urine, he was able to use this skill to poison his food. And without a doubt, this man was it. Thus, if he were to undertake the true test, the arrow resting in his fingers would go directly to this individual. His aura dipped to his 2 index fingers as he whispered the invocation of the paralyzing poison. Something was off with Perry's body, claiming immobility. He spun around and spoke out. Our hero walked up to the unconscious man and informed him that the test had been successful. The whole time was 1 hour, which he could see, and he would proceed by placing the man on his back. While M was hurting somewhere, Perry was in pain. He was instructed to stop being so mean. He wished he knew if he had come to and knew himself again. Peru wreaked havoc as panic, and the protagonist admonished him to answer truthfully. That is, to question himself if he was the one who had poisoned the broth. He wanted to ask this man a few questions. Peru needs to blink once for a right response and twice for an incorrect one. To make sure he got it, he inquired, and just once, Peru blinked. To find out if he was responsible for poisoning his soup, our hero chose to inquire again. A single blink from Peru conveyed her icy stare at him. Has the Hanyang poison been administered to him? His urine begs the issue. Herb. Peru drew back and blinked again. Next, our hero wanted to know if the person who sent among them was Markwise Ka. Given Peru's denial, Urane was taken aback by the response. He warned the man against lying on account of his ability to reveal all. Deceit would shorten his life expectancy. He would inquire once more, this time inquiring as to whether Miss K.A. made the decision. More terrified than before, Peru denied it once again. Our hero believed he wasn't being truthful and was curious to find out who it was. However, he would pretend for a while, advising him to consume this as the first poison. A guy swallowed. Our hero announced that he will be gone in exactly 1 month. He had the antidote from the month before, but he forgot to take it. His organs would melt as time went on. Therefore, for the time being, it was best to do what he said. To make sure he got it, he inquired, and Lima, Peru, reached a consensus. The hero reached up and touched his head, attempting to expel the poison that paralyzed him. The man's freedom has been restored. Peru agrees when our hero tells him he can talk and move about now. In his urine, he expresses a desire to inquire one more time. Determine his sender. According to Peru, who claims to be little frightened, it was the living Titanite of Karak, the commander of the knights. His directive was for the youthful. The year must come to a close before the master dies in battle. The main character mistakenly believes he is Ka's older brother, made captain by virtue of personal connections, albeit that was of little consequence. To his new subordinate, he presents a sheet of paper. 2 inquiries in the event that those weren't all lethal doses. Our hero believes that few possess the depth of knowledge that this man possesses. He then proceeds to inform him that he or someone similar to him may buy them illegally and should pocket Karax's cash. It is imperative that he brings every toxin, beginning with the one he has by the time tomorrow night rolls around. Why does he require so many poisons per wonders? Questions about when he handed him the urine specimen, the green light to inquire further. The subordinate only nods in comprehension. A urine test can reveal whether need to get out of here fast. In addition, from now on, a lot of hanging grass should be in all of his therapeutic soups. This has Peru completely taken aback. While resting in his chamber, our hero gushes over how amazing it was and how amazing martial arts are unmatched in strength. Even though he just needed a handful of leaves to concoct his first poison, Peru bought into it. However, during this time, he has to become an expert in the 4 heavenly Tang styles of martial arts without delay. Unfortunately, if events unfolded differently from what he said, worldwide occurrences would take place. Day after day, Peru summons the young master and tells him that he gathered all of the toxic herbs he possessed. The main character says this while dropping ginseng and leaves upon the table. Was a crow ink leaf, the other a reverse green creeper, and Hainan grass was the third. Peru is taken aback and wonders how he understood, as they were all harmful, uncommon herbs. Euron says it was simple and shows that he understands everything. He shifts the conversation to inquire about the other toxins in Peru, claiming that Hammy and grass would have been able to handle them without them. To complete the task, Peru says it takes a long time for Hammy and grass to grow, and that anyone can persevere if they acquire resistance of it. The effects are amplified when combined with green creeper. To conclude, the main character says that if the toxins are, when they're mixed, they grow more powerful and evasive. Inquiring concerning the source of poison knowledge, Peru states that he was apprenticed to a poison master by the living Tyne family when he was 8 years old. Roughly 20 kids were there, but they were all killed and his survival was the sole surviving individual. Children wouldn't last long without a love for poison, according to Urine, and Peru isn't appear appreciative to the relatives. The day came to a close with him gaining a helpful individual and boasting about his accomplishments. The Indies expresses gratitude to the youthful teacher and sends best wishes for his tranquil might, alone in the room. Our hero thinks it's time to start. On account of the toxic herbs there, he would put one in his mouth after another until they were all gone. The main character gets sick to his stomach from the taste. After his system alerts him that he has consumed all the toxins, he is in grave danger and must meditate and progress to the 2nd level. As he tries to focus intently, our hero takes a long breath. Ara knocks on his door after yet another day has gone by. She informed her lord that she was already in mourning as she stood at the door. To her surprise, she sees that the young master has awakened, even though he was lying in bed contemplating. To this day, she still doesn't understand what happened to his corpse. Ultimately, the hero is able to get 2 stars, learn the martial technique of draconic treasure, and unlock 3 additional poisons. Subsequently, he experiences a bright in his countenance. Despite her insatiable curiosity about the young master's whereabouts, she can't shake the smell of something off, and finds fault with it. Scratching his head, our hero merely accepts. Truthfully, he thinks back on it. As a person's inner strength and martial arts skills develop to a certain point, the body rids itself of many contaminants. Then he goes on to mention that he should open the door because it smells a little. Window. He could just skip it and head right to the bathroom, Aaron tells him. Throughout the day, she guides the path of the young master. When realizes he was mastering the Draconic Steps martial art form, a method of enhanced movement and evasion practiced by the Tang Dynasty loved ones. This is something that only happens in books, and he can't believe he's learning it. At first, Aaron thinks he'll just have to mimic the gestures, so he summons the turn to the young master, who was concerned about his health and wanted to know why he was now staggering around like a drunk. The hero assures her that he was alright and that she has nothing to be concerned about. Aaron, who is giggling, asked whether he's okay as he walks side to side. Simply put, he was all be spending a lot of time tonight at Training Hall 1. The main character assures everyone he will be alright. His only interest was in learning how. He wasn't a concern as the other knights trained. It was almost there when Aaron gave the warning. Swordsmanship is a vital part of the knight's training regimen. All the way over and to the side. Because the woman was the eldest young master's, a knight is taken aback and wonders who she was. Servant. Whoever that dashing young man was following her, though, they want to know his identity. Everyone is shocked because they remember how much weight the young master dropped. Throughout training, curious about the powers he utilized to rise from obscurity. The main character believes it makes no difference if these men whisper, in silence. Everything is audible to him because of his boundless inner vitality. In the corridor, Aaron sees a man who appears to be intensely practicing, whose posture was so good that he would likely become a novice soon. He looked like a knight apprentice. As a result of these shifts, the rock's fencing, so the novice instructor needs to keep a close eye on things. It was Clyde, a pivotal individual, that Urine noticed. In the story who ends up being the protagonist's confidant. Prior to his discovery, he had never documented his history. Slashing from side to side, Clyde underneath, and Urine finds it intriguing that he is here. Eventually, a better chance would present itself. Present day, these chivalry, his subjects were those who had previously shown no interest in him. He will begin by testing in chain. He zeroed down on a knight with purple hair. His decision is to turn it on, and the knight feels it immediately, causing him to collapse to his knees as onlookers rush to help him, curious to find out what it was and whether he required the use of the restroom. While he attempts to deny it, the man's saliva dries up, withstand the agony. The knights yell out that they must summon the priest as he collapses on the floor. Subsequently, nevertheless, the ache goes away, and his supervisor wonders what went wrong. His employer wonders if he's kidding when he says the discomfort has gone and advises him to go to the restroom. In his defense, the knight claims he was in actual agony. It was great, according to urine, and he'll trigger the mist of soul disintegration, which confuses and frightens any nearby targets. Of all things, a knight heard a clatter as the guy standing before him metamorphosed into a monstrous monster. Aaron notices the men sprawled on the ground, angrily yelling for the monster to leave. Why were they behaving in that way, she wonders. The man has a terrifying nightmare in which a skeleton and a demon attempt to murder him. I'm hating it. Suddenly though, it's as if nothing existed. Suddenly, they want to know what it was. The Euros must ensure their victory, and I am impressed. And that concludes today's testing. As a result, he says he'll be back today. Aaron wonders if he's pulling back too soon, and the main character confirms that it was Moisey and promises to proceed to Hall 4 as scheduled. I meet a female on my route. She mentions a visitor for the aspiring apprentice had shown up. He was visited by Miss Ilya and Marcus. The window shopping woman claims that she will finally overcome Urine's resistance this time. She looks to the protagonist, who does nothing more than call her name. Urine wonders if the girl has arrived yet as she flushes unexpectedly. Upon realizing he isn't familiar, Ilya inquires that he was. Initially, the protagonist mistook the maid's announcement that Ilya Marcus was waiting for him for the arrival of his dogged fiancé, his person. During this period, she likely insisted on ending the engagement, but Urine insisted on telling her no, to change their mindset. According to the young man, there's nothing anyone can do about it. Upon returning to the chamber, our hero denies being the one responsible. The young woman is astounded. He mentions that it has been some time afterwards. It was plainly untrue, according to Elia, who heard the story that he was losing weight from exercising, since he had transformed so drastically in just 2 months. According to our hero, it was all down to his tireless efforts, which left Ilya bewildered. Urine pondered for some time after getting beaten. After that, he made the decision to alter his life trajectory. Ilya has asked the young man if he wanted to take revenge by fighting back, but he declined. He expressed his deepest gratitude to her, as she had brought him to his senses, and he expressed genuine regret for the events that transpired. If she decided to end their engagement due to that, he claimed he would understand. She didn't recognize him, so I just asked who he was. The answer he gave was that he was a distant relative of the Rocks. Once more, he expressed profound regret for all that he had accomplished. Thea was taken aback by this. In all candor, the protagonist reasoned that it wasn't his fault. Yet, the rightful owner of this corporeal objects, there was a particular motive behind his request for forgiveness. There was more to Helia than meets the eye. It was hers to possess. Her swordsmanship was greatly boosted by her sword queen talent. In subsequent chapters, she would rescue the fallen hero and vanquish the last evil, all due to her skill. Therefore, it would be to their advantage to mend their connection and make her his ally, regardless of whether the engagement had been broken. But inquiring about his sincerity, Ilya admonished him to get up. Even though Neuron said yes and made a pledge, the girl turned down. While exuding an intimidating presence, she insisted that he swear by it. The main character believed it to be a repressive strain, and he had witnessed this scenario previously. Ilya warned him that she would punish him severely if he violated their agreement and continued living the way he had been. Surpass him. Because Ilya, the heroine's initial asterisk, had stated this to her, the protagonist was perplexed. You could wow, he was gasping for air as he mumbled something about the electric divine art's various poisons. It caught Ilya off guard when the protagonist got to his feet. She was curious about his resistance to her aura, but our hero took it and vowed to keep it a secret, with a charming grin on his face. After promising to keep an eye on him, Ilya turned to leave in embarrassment. If no matter the circumstances, they would end the engagement if he made another mistake. It had remained unfinished, which astonished the protagonist. In the midst of castle, the child verified to Wellington that she had indeed discovered P. He wanted to know if she was sure she wanted to do it. Hillia reiterated her earlier statement that the engagement would remain intact regardless of the circumstances. What was the reason? Wellington inquired. Hillia further by saying that her dad, she was intrigued by the story that Asterisk had changed, despite her previous assertions that individuals couldn't change. Concerned about if he had transformed back into the delicate, weak P she had used as a child, she was perplexed since he had transformed into an entirely new person. Wanted to give him a chance to prove himself once. When Wellington wanted to know whether that was it, the girl confirmed. However, should he return to I'm going to humiliate him until he passes out since I'm a loser, she was told by Wellington that it was required of a great fighter, is responsible for handling Urine. The Lord begged Ilya to remain a few more days, but she insisted on continuing on her journey. That young lady uncomfortably said that she had informed her father that she would end the engagement. Before he left, Wellington wanted to know if she would see Urine. To avoid interrupting him, Ilya said he was training, so she declined. Day after day, Urine pondered the mystery behind his dad had given him a call. He scowled and demanded to know who this asterisk was. Our hero was bewildered. That is being discussed. Urine had put in a lot of time and effort, and Wellington laughed it off, but he still wanted to know if Urine was aware of the reason for his summons. Is it about the beginning of his night training? Urine wanted to know. Per Wellington, he was correct and had also grown more pointed. He made it clear that you would be studying the Rock family's swordsmanship from now on. The subsequent to that, our hero contacted the Marquis over phone, claiming to have fresh information to impart, since Ur was interested in learning throwing techniques rather than martial arts. After our hero verified the details, Wellington shot back that it was terrible. A vulture, the bandits utilized their abilities. Even a low-level monster like a borak would be too much for him to handle with that strategy. He then that they wager on whether he could successfully hunt a bear using only a dagger. With Wellington's self-assurance, they ought to gamble on that. His dad said he was being too stubborn. The aura was necessary for a warrior's blade to sever a scales of boraks. No amount of throwing practice will ever allow you to penetrate borak scales. If that's the case, our hero claims his father can be certain of his triumph. I propose we place a wager. He was accused of being irresponsible by his father. Might seize this opportunity to thoroughly undermine his obstinacy. When asked about the requirements for winning, Urine said that he would be considered victorious if he vanquished a borak using his blade. He would administer his own training, and in the event of his failure, he would obey his father's orders. Given that as the day went by, our hero reflected on how fortunate it was that Aaron hadn't divulged his workout regimen. Tomorrow would bring the true test. He pondered the number of tries, even pierce a borak scale, just in case he were to consume some toxic plants tonight and double his countless the almighty body to 3 stars, poisoning it. At the sound of a sound, he spun around, notifying the young master that she was on her way to deliver. Aaron shouted out to her, to Marcus with a message. The first training center will be the site tomorrow at 1200. His question centered on whether or not she was even an asterisk. Asterisk was already aware of the wager, and Aaron informed her that the whole estate was as well. Because of that, people were laughing their heads off in every corner. It was said that whenever the young master spotted Borak having an affair, he would either run away or wet his pants in fright. Enjoyed talking about it. Keep in mind that the youthful master remained the archenemy of the people. According to Urine, in any event, tomorrow every one of these folks will be watching. Aaron was accurate when he said the marquees wouldn't end there and that the training facility would be fully full. Despite his grumbling, the young man was interested in hearing Aaron's prediction about what would happen. According to the girl, that would likely be the day when the young master shows off. He had 3 levels of divine body skill using his many poisons. Starry night, the great testing hour had come. With cries of support or opposition, the crowd erupted in applause for the youth. Master, the urine test confirmed how humiliating it was. To kick off the occasion, his dad wanted to know if his son was all set. While confirming, the young man did say that there was a massive crowd. Wellington claimed he had confided in his wizard alone, but word had gotten around nevertheless. You shouldn't be embarrassed about it. A low-range summoning spell would be cast, the magician said. The P hoped he would be able to witness magic for the first time. A monstrous form materialized in the midst of the smoke as a bolt of lightning ripped across the battlefield. The hero believed there was something much more astounding. Confronted the monstrosity he had crafted during his time as a writer. A sea borak behemoth standing at 1.50 meters tall. No one should look at it, the people thought. I was frightened. Our hero was very impressed. It appeared just like this. As he munched on his purple fish sushi, the monster known as the borak popped into his head and had a mind brimming with monster ideas. It may be quite endearing if it weren't for its limbs. A monstrous creature sprang into action. Direction of the young guy. Uran merely registered the strike and evaded, shifting to the creature's rear. Even if the Lord claimed it wasn't not yet done. In utter perplexion, the borak shifted their gaze. The main character assumed it had charged without giving it a second thought. Unfortunately, the speed wasn't what he had anticipated. The toughness of its scales while drawing a dagger would be his first assessment. Something new then caught his eye. It is possible was a mark that looked like a target, suggesting that the creature had a vulnerability. The main character chose to attempt swinging his deftly hurl the blade aside. The creature's weak spot was struck when his kui was channeled into the sword. A severe pain was felt by the boraks when it fell to collapse to the floor, their defeat ending the performance. Because the protagonist believed it had fallen in a single hit, he moaned. The individuals participating human Wellington was astounded and amazed. The crowd erupted in cries of approval as they proclaimed the youth as the true master. The apprentice teacher had slew the borak, and that was awesome. His cheers abruptly ended when someone shouted, "You're in Ubat." The hero explained that he had aimed precisely and hit the target, answering the question of how he had accomplished it. The fact that he couldn't, according to his father, ignore this because it would be impossible for a borax to be vanquished by a blade alone. The main character pondered was the great Marquis' rocks to back out of his promise. His sorcerer summoned the Marquis and informed him that, under that the young master had hit an area on Borax's arm where there were no scales. According to Wellington, it was all down to luck. That being said, the protagonist insisted that a bet was still a bet. He was about to add another round when his dad requested for just one more. Make a pledge instead. Whatever he requested would ensure a wish if he succeeded this time. However, if he failed, you would have to. They decided that you should return to fencing school. And our hero couldn't contain his excitement. A knight, not a dragon, would be his adversary this time, according to his father. Borak. At this point, he wanted to know if he was up for the challenge. In his protagonist's mind, it was irrelevant, therefore he answered yes. He was considered the inverse to be true. He had his opportunity, and he would confront Kirox, the chief of the knights, questioning whether this might be his chance to humble that haughty man. He should release him for the time being, nevertheless, because he insisted on keeping Peru's poison. According to Wellington, certainly, a trained knight would be too much for him to manage. Therefore, it would be reasonable for him to substitute an apprentice. In his mind, the main character pondered to it, considering whether he had the power to select the knight. He decided to fight Clyde. Advancing toward the arena, the man carried his blade. After that, Wellington noted that he was extremely confident in his ability to secure a work for Clyde, and he mentioned that the mark had specifically requested him. With "Ah, yes!" the apprentice agreed. His lord could rely on him to obey any order. Clyde turned around as he ordered him to fix the lad. As he walked away from the young master, all he did was wave, utterly confused fencing apprentice. So long as he was confident in his abilities, Wellington would inquire as to what was wrong. In his denial, Clyde said that he complied with the directive. The main character reassured him not to fret much. Just 3 daggers would be all he threw, and if Clyde, he may claim victory if he blocked all 3. Insisting that he had seen the boy's haughtiness, Wellington asked whether he had. Show him the ropes this time. The hero, Clyde, drew his sword and walked around the arena. According to the knights, they wouldn't let him eat tonight and would force him to run 100 laps around the training grounds if he didn't win. An audience member speaking in a female voice remarked, it might be done by the young master. He had the impression that whoever it was supporting him. Clyde subsequently beckoned to the youthful. The master made an announcement that he was prepared, and the urine also turned around. He was planning to begin by turning out the lights as he sharpened his first dagger. However, it did not escape his attention, an unusual thing. There were a lot more opportunities for Clyde to score than in his first bout with Borak. If his hit was successful, using one of those, he could be able to defeat him. He threw his first dagger in an effort to prevent that from happening. Without hesitation, he would move forward. Good, Clyde said, wrestled for control of the weapon. It made him take a backward step, maybe 4 steps. Many were perplexed by the noise. A cannon, it appeared, blast. When Wellington saw the dagger fall to the floor, he instructed him to wait. He took it up, astonished that something so common could have such incredible power. Sharp instrument. After having his blade pierced, Clyde quivered with fear. The main character wanted to know if he was ready to depart. At this point, having witnessed the consequences of letting his guard down, this time, he would pretend to be under pressure and hurl everything he had at him, so he cautioned him to be prepared, which caused the novice knight to shudder. Despite everything that had happened, the protagonist still considered Clyde a major character. With this, he would not lose. Wei and Yurin prepared his dagger for a direct stroke. Having decided that the moment had come, Clyde, that great explosion occurred again as night fell, tried to retaliate with a long sword, but the arena was rocked by a tremendous resounding collision. As the haze started to understandably, the onlookers were taken aback. The result shocked the Marquis. Clyde was on his hands and knees. Now that his weapon was in bits, he quavered with horror. Marcus Wellington was left behind when he let go of it. Rendered mute, he summoned Yuran to him, stating that they must have a private conversation. According to the main character, the match was still ongoing. The Marquis was wondering why there was only one dagger left, given that it had sufficed. But after deciding to ask Clyde directly, Yurin summoned Clyde to raise his head. To his youthful master, he cried out, no matter the outcome of the combat. The protagonist questioned whether he would choose this humiliating way to finish it and whether a knight would accept it. It was the way of the knight to strike his sword until there was no longer any hope of victory or defeat. After that, he raised his voice and threatened to ask Clyde again if he was going to give up in this situation. Even though he barely spoke to the young master, the knight insisted on having a new sword brought to him. Leaning forward, and he made it clear that he would not budge in this manner, radiating energy. How could a beginner awaken his senses? The Marquis thought, while the knights were astounded. This kind of aura. It was only natural that Clyde's berserker abilities would surface at this early stage. He could now sit for more advanced exams, advanced methods. For a few seconds, the two adversaries just look at one another. Telling the young master to hurl his dagger, Clyde yelled out to him. Located in Wellington, denial of the situation persisted within. A high-ranking knight's talent was required for such an aura to materialize. The protagonist, who had no idea what Yurin would do, just said it was good. He retrieved his final blade and placed it with all his might. He flung it awkwardly in the direction of the man. Shouting, Clyde pondered what it was and why it was moving at such a snail's pace this time. He was merely playing a practical joke on him. Subsequently, he attempted to slice the dagger, but it only managed to veer past his blade. It was confused, and Wellington became alert to the situation when he saw this condition. Clyde had the blade lodged in his side, nearing a piercing of his bones, inflicting excruciating anguish throughout the night. He collapsed on the floor. Curious minds wanted to know. It moved at a snail's pace. Clyde ought to cease. They couldn't help but wonder if he was being overly lenient because the young master was involved. In the protagonist's mind, there had to be more something stuck in it, and this time it's hurting really bad. Yurin was his father's way of telling him they would have a conversation later. It was because he had won the wager earlier. The main character grinned. The protagonist reached out and patted Clyde as he cried out from his shoulder wound, explaining him to pause for a second while he absorbs energy. Clyde felt the agony diminishing. Thank you, young master, he said, for it, and the urine test came out negative. He was requested for pardon by the knight. He elaborated by saying that initially, when the dagger was moving at such a snail's pace that he suspected his youthful master was underestimating him. However, that was completely untrue. This was an exact technique. That amount of time would be too little for even an expert to learn the skill. Evidently, he was trying to conceal his actual power. Are you saying that there was a shadowy group out to get the Marcus, and he'd been keeping his power a secret up until now? It had appeared peculiar that the young master was the only one left behind, which was not surprising. A selfless sacrifice was made. Considering the urine, he has a lifelong fascination with conspiracy theories. Meanwhile, Clyde praised the young master for his admirable perspective during his struggle against this clandestine group. If he ever had a need for Clyde, he should simply inquire. The hero accepted, claiming they would meet again later, and wondering when his favorability had grown to such a level that he thought Clyde was just a bon vivant berserker. Clyde assured him that he could be trusted to spread the word about the young master's impeccable character and ensure that everyone heard about the whispers. The more time you spend near Clyde, the more likely it is that he will be able to finish missions on his own, which would be useful. Erin commended the young master for her hard work, and she expressed her gratitude to Erin. The last tactic he used was something she'd never seen before, she said. Anything comparable. Introducing herself as a newbie, our heroine sought her opinion on the matter. Erin claimed that while she was viewing it, thoughts of how she could have lost if she'd confronted him blind, but she was confident she could dodge it this time. She wasn't bluffing, according to our heroine, and among one of her unique and potent powers was the calm mind mirror attribute. In response, Urine said that she had been studying to become a knight since even as a little girl. She had the potential to become a knight had she not let her guard down. He wanted to know if she was okay with the current state of affairs. "Hello, Aaron!" Perplexed by the abruptness of the inquiry, Wellington took it easy at his office as the day wore on. Upon entering the room, the protagonist inquired, why? Well, he received a call from the Marquis. "When there are only the two of us, his dad says it's like there are no one else. You can refer to me as Dad. This stuffiness is dampening the spirit." Just being confused was all that Urine could do. "What precisely is that?" his father inquired. His strategy from yesterday was based on the fact that he had never encountered such an unusual move, not even after poring over books. He had barely been a month into training, and it wouldn't matter how uncommon a genius was if they could learn a method by themselves. The subject of his insistence was advised him to be honest about what had transpired. The hero had something wonderful planned, but he was afraid he couldn't tell anyone. "I have discovered," he declared, an inquiry from his father regarding a book. "Yes," the young man said, going on to say that as he strolled through the state library, he found a book while searching for instructions. He rested his back against the wall, perplexed as to who had dropped the book on the floor. A book slipped from upon the shelf's dusty surface. The cover lacked a title and was instead inscribed with an enigmatic symbol. Without giving it any thought, our hero opened the written work. Something was inserted directly into his consciousness as a light burst forth. The book then disappeared entirely. Located in Wellington, stated that this constituted a magical tum. Our hero gave a little nod. A magic tum, he thought, was just a rule he had made up, having the ability to transmit magical knowledge like a great mage. Even though the Lord was unaware of how the magic tum operated, he claimed that it did its job in this manner. May have been transported by his forefathers. He was quite fortunate to stumble into this book. After much deliberation, our hero chose to think about it's a pleasant surprise. Proclaiming that a promise was a promise and refusing to subject him to any further pressure, his father rose to his feet. Become a master swordsman. He should also make clear his desires as a further sign of his commitment. The main character contacted spoke to his dad in a soothing tone. Wellington was taken aback when he expressed his desire for a specific hairstyle. But what if he really did? There was no way his dad could promise this. Wellington paused to consider the situation before declaring that, under his authority, he could. The main character wondered why he appeared thus uncomfortable, since many would oppose the Marquis' house if he became a successor, particularly the young woman who was about to stir up a tremendous deal of trouble. He decided to give in this time. Even though he asked first, his father swiftly agreed, and he was thanked. Role that Uruk plays. Should he be named the heir apparent, he would not be able to escape the mark if they spent all day learning about state management. He had other plans, like using the opportunity to get better at the four winds of the Tang family and explore the globe in search of opportunity. After Wellington prompted him to clarify his other wish, our hero claimed an interest in founding a knightly order. Aaron, who was his butler at the time, and Clyde, who had fought with him, were his desires. Him before, as his two chivalrous subjects. His dad assured him it wasn't as tough as the Harris job, and that Aaron's talent was vital, so would be a misguided decision to retain her in that role. He was just thanked by Urine, who advised him to do as he pleased. His butler was the subject of the Lord's interrogation, as at the moment, there weren't many remaining. Urine said that he was planning to hire a man named Peru to serve as butler in the kitchen, but he was turned down. "I'd be grateful if the Marquis could admit fault and offer him a second chance." When Wellington wanted to know if anything was going on, Urine told him that he could provide an explanation at a later time. Just accepting it on one side was all his father did. The hero believed his father had faith in him, without even bothering to inquire. He was confused about how his popularity had increased, maybe because he had been his son. From this day forward, the protagonist proclaimed outside, the two of them would be part of his exclusive nightclub order. For the time being, they need to put in a lot of work during practical exercises, and Peru, their new butler, arrived. Just wanted them to watch out for him. As he stood by silently, Aaron recalled yesterday when she had questioned the youth's master. She was intent on finding out why he would appoint Peru as her butler instead of her. The main character expressed confusion and said that he's stationed there as a spy on behalf of Miss Kae and Commander Karax of the White Eagle. Even if it were real, she still couldn't believe it, according to Aaron. Close by in the role of butler, the main character said that Peru will now exclusively follow his commands. As Clyde spoke to the youthful master, it was a query he had. Aaron gave him the green light, saying it was good. The ambitious knight said that, indeed, even when faced it should have a leader or commander, but there were only two of them. It was already a knight order. At first, the leader was the one with the better abilities. While Aaron appeared weak and frail due to his small stature and fragility, he is so qualified to serve as chief, and the main character agreed with him. No less capable knight should have the position of chief. Hence, going forward, these two ought to engage in warfare. A matter of seconds after which Aaron placed her sword close to Clyde's neck as he conceded defeat. He was allegedly too aggressive, according to her. Easy and necessitated significant enhancement so that he would persevere with his efforts. The suggestion was approved, and Clyde promised to remember it. Reluctantly, the hero gave in, and announced that, as a result, Aaron would be leading the night order. He then praised her and Peru. After Peru said he would make supper first, the day went by. The young man felt a surge of energy and decided to test his theory that he had gone far enough. He has developed a novel method of producing and transmitting auditory waves that rely on his internal energy rather than his voice. Targets. A method frequently employed in WXIO narratives. Peru was then mentally summoned. Young people were addressed by Peru Master. He turned back to see that he wasn't there. After further repetitions of his name, the protagonist, causing his butler immense confusion and fear. His apparent astonishment was questioned by Urine, while Peru voiced their dissatisfaction, concerned that he was losing his mind and seeking answers about the possibility of black magic. In response, our hero said that it was a mode of interaction. Perry confirmed his suspicions, saying that the poison wasn't the only thing affecting him. Black magicians supposedly possessed the ability to utilize both. Thus the youthful, the master fit that description. The main character, perplexed, told him to think as he liked. Does the poison he requested actually work? Last time was prepared, and Peru gave their approval. Poison from 100 poisonous snakes, called Snake's Mind, was prepared. His nemesis warned him to spike the celebratory soup with a lethal dose of poison. At first, Peru was terrified, but they eventually came to terms with it, asserting his comprehension. The protagonist woke up the following day after meditating. Thinking he was still on 3 stars, he let out another heavy sigh, and he didn't feel the surge of energy he had anticipated coming from within. He had to go because he had no idea when the global catastrophe would happen. This is currently Marcus' domain. He informed his father of his departure plans when he was at his study. Located in Wellington, interrogated him on the subject because it had been some time after his departure, and he was likely recalling a town in the Marquisate. After the protagonist gave his word, his father wanted to know how long he would be gone. His potential for greatness amuses you, but felt no need to disclose that. Accordingly, he mentioned that a week was on his mind. After asking his son who he wanted to be his coach, his father stated he understood because his son had been practicing hard. Who provides escort services? The hero's response, which left the Lord perplexed, was that he really didn't require one. According to what he told his son, to his status as the firstborn son of Marquis Rocks should be taken into consideration. The main character said that he intended to. It seemed unusual to be escorted to a neighboring town. Wellington yelled out that he was completely unaware of how challenging he had trained himself to become powerful, but the fear of the poison kept him from facing the world. Toxins, according to the protagonist, wouldn't sway him anyhow, and convincing him looked like it would be a challenge. Therefore, he promised to comply with his request. Then his dad wanted to know when he would head out. After hearing that it would be in approximately 2 days, Wellington made the decision to get everything ready for the go with him to his room. Since Muran intended to slip away tomorrow, he felt that hiring an escort would be pointless. The hero contacted Peru that day as sunset approached to his chamber. Not having any money with him, he told Peru he was going on a trip and requested him to bring some. It is imperative that Peru has the funds that Crocs had given him to purchase costly enchantments. If Peru had no intention of turning it over, he wanted to know. Peru declined. He assured her that he would bring it nonetheless, saying that it was an honor. Additionally, our hero wanted to know if he had anything else, for the reason that he noticed Peru's subspace bag the last time he carried poisonous herbs. Quite a common thing, this for use in fantastical books, which might carry a substantial amount. Peru promised to give it to the young master, but quite grudgingly. Since he wouldn't have to lug around a bag anymore, Urine graciously accepted and expressed gratitude. On the other hand, he suggested that he take a pill to disguise his counterfeit medication. The antidote for his poison, he claimed, would last for a month. Our hero expressed his confidence in Peru's future performance and promised to provide a full cure if he persisted. Peru, lively. Ura knew he had to sneak out the next day, around daybreak, because he was supposed to be escorted. With remarkable ease, he traversed the estate. It was as expected. The young man thought nobody was around. The gardener saw the young master and welcomed him, noting that he had risen early that day. The main character did little more than admit it, reasoning that he experienced a feeling a great deal of energy radiating from this seemingly benign gardener with the green thumb. He made the decision to tap into his creator's vision, only to be taken aback by what he perused. Following his departure from the Marquis' castle, our hero spent the remainder of the day reflecting on the fact that he had never been away from it before. Something struck his eye. First, the enchanted tower. Nearby, a sorcerer was observing the young man, wondering what he might do to assist him. This was the response from Urane. He believes the portal would be useful. The protagonist denied using it previously when the magician inquired if he had. According to the young receptionist, they provided the protagonist pondered that it was similar to airplanes and the mileage system. Where are you going? The wizard inquired. The P replied that it was the ASU castle. The receptionist acknowledged the distance and got it. 50 gold would be the price. He would have to put his signature on the passport when he pays. Just as one would imagine, our hero found it to be pricey, yet satisfying. Said Peru's economy was booming. At the moment, he's going by his gaming alias, Polan. Per the wizard's request, he was to keep on. Someone told him to go into the room. He would know he had come when he heard the knock. The hero stepped inside, contemplating the fact that the layout was aesthetically pleasing. The very pinnacle of the fortress was struck by lightning in an instant. No one could decipher Urine, but a guy claimed to have got there and could go. He is warmly welcomed to Asu Castle. His presence was puzzling to Urine because he hadn't felt every single thing as a matter of pride for magicians. The mage responded that the gateway was easy to use. Considered this Urine emotional state. Curious about whether he had included such a soothing feeling into his narrative, he pondered. However, the wizard encouraged the customer to make future use of their services and wished them well. Journey. As the doors swung open, our hero was confronted with an entirely different setting. It was Villa Asu. The distinctive architectural styles may have originated from the fact that there was an eastern area distinct from the Marquis's jurisdiction, were different. Plus, there were a lot of people in the area. Finding a blacksmith alley would be his first step. He would then approach a local for relevant data. In an alley, he came to a little house after following a trail. He had been looking for the unicorn for quite some time, but he still hadn't found it, as his urine revealed. Blacksmith. Darkness was already setting in over the sky. He had to examine it shortly, and this was the last spot. On an anvil, a blacksmith pounded a sword to mold it. Is anyone around? The protagonist inquired. Both the protagonist and the new customer were noticed by the blacksmith. Verified, but among the blacksmiths there, he had an inquiry. Is the blacksmith aware of this? He wanted to know. It was said that the unicorn was a blacksmith. In response, the man stated that he was unaware of any blacksmiths in the area who went by such name. Yurin questioned his destination, but the blacksmith reassured him, saying, "Regardless, that's the name I plan to use for my shop soon." Yurin then made use of his name was Juranox, and he had the ability to craft demonic weapons, so the creators kept a watch on him. The player discovered he had landed at the correct spot. He wanted to see the guns up close, so he asked if he could. It was suggested by the blacksmith that he go that route. Looking around, all of the armor and weaponry displayed on the wall were checked by Yurin. The blacksmith looked surprised when he asked how business was confused. He gave the reason that his store was at the very end of the alley and that his abilities weren't very great. Regardless of the people would drop by every once in a while, but most of the time they would merely glance before departing. He doubted he could maintain it for much longer. So, the main character pondered that it was interesting. There was no joking about the equipment. He beheld the rapier of the wind spirit, which accelerated both attack and movement, and the rapier of the fire spirit, swinging a longsword, increased power and endurance. After that, he wanted to know if Jurinox had crafted them by hand. Jurinox confirmed. Nevertheless, upon completion, they proved to be utter disappointments. After they were made, the swords were unusually weighty. Not to mention no one with strength could raise them. So, nobody went out and bought those guns. Because unworthy hands were involved, Yuren reasoned, got their hands on the blades. The power of the blade would awaken if it were wielded by the appropriate person. He remained bewildered as to the real deal was successful. He then declared his intention to seize those two swords. As for the sections that failed, Juranox said, but he reflected that it wasn't the treasure he was seeking, even though the protagonist claimed they were ideal to offer to Aaron and Clyde. In any case, he wanted to know if he possession of any firearms that were severely corroded. The guy was perplexed. In the next scene, our hero brought out a crate of rusty implements. The blacksmith thought it was odd that he wanted old, rusted weapons. He would have dumped those into storage for future sale. These items would be unused nevertheless, proving that everything was just as he had imagined. Our hero reached into the package, to Juranox's surprise, gun and reported that he had succeeded. When he got there, it was already in a storage facility. He was completely bewildered by its origin. He debated dumping it because trash, but I saved it. He too wants the dagger, the protagonist said. Juranox was taken aback. Ever since he should just pay 2 gold for the defective weapons, and the dagger would be a gift. Our hero reasoned that wasn't expensive. He couldn't purchase these weapons for less than 200 gold pieces if their real nature were to be revealed. But what he really desired was the blacksmith. Therefore, he promised to shut down Juranox's shop and reiterated that business was bad. Him to take up the role of personal blacksmith. Juranox stated that he was at a loss for words because it came on so suddenly. He had no problem with closing. However, that came out of nowhere. He chose to introduce himself first, the protagonist. He possessed the unbreakable spear that stood watch over House Rox's southern Juranox. When Juranox heard the name of the young Marquis, he was taken aback. Following this, he had no idea he would end himself in such a lowly position, so he knelt down and begged the Lord for forgiveness. Our hero to get up from his seat. It was unnecessary, Juranox said. He felt at ease and could express himself freely in this setting. Despite accepting, the protagonist persisted he ought to stand up, believing he was unable to break free of the feudal mentality. He was a poor blacksmith, and Juranox wondered why he would want to hire him. The protagonist answered, it was because of his special talent. In response to which the blacksmith denied had any such quality. Under his tutelage, he day in and day out. The main character pondered that his training seems to have been characterized by a severe Spartan approach. He on to say that he had spent the day touring numerous forges and seen a wide array of weaponry. However, Juranox were unique. His devotion and concern for them were immense. Swords were expertly forged, with particular attention paid to the grips, which were critical for maintaining a firm hold while fighting. He had faith that Juranox will eventually bring forth a remarkable talent after witnessing his commitment. Our hero questioned whether he could actually enlist his help. Although Juranox was not at all like the young master, he did say that he would follow him. The whispers spread. Do you mean that was about him being trash? The protagonist inquired. In any case, he would demonstrate to the blacksmith something entertaining. He set his pointer finger on blade. Since it was the artifact that had been reshaped many times by Aang, he then used his own blood to awaken it. With a sudden levitation, the weapon slipped through the fingers of our hero. The blacksmith was perplexed by the object. It resembled a fabled ego sword. At first, Urine believed the hero was meant to be the one to get it. Inquiring about the possibility of a one-on-one agreement between him, Aang, and the system, that the young guy went ahead and did it. A peculiar voice emerged from the spirit's transformed body. It raised doubts about the whatever the fuck was going on. He had no business entering into a contract with this. Regardless, you lack talent. Our hero, I was let down since I could sense no mana emanating from him, yet his speech was incredibly haughty. The sword expressed its displeasure with this. An individual with his level of dedication needed a contract badly. So, how exactly are you aware of my release enchantment? The main character responded. He believed he had heard it from a great prophet, but he later realized he had fabricated it to make his story fit together. What the great prophet had said to Aang was a mystery to Aang. Such a person. In any case, my skills are obvious to you. The main character verified that it was a piece of free-form equipment that could be transformed into whatever shape the user desired by splitting into a main and secondary body. The hero wielded a shield and sword throughout the narrative. It would just revert to its primary weapon, even if the secondary one went missing. Physical form. Since it could only be used with Willy and mana, Aang speculated that he was confused about how to use it. He needs to quit due to that. Without speaking, the main character observed. She was the type to make a lot of noise, he said, with a pointing finger. He imagined a ring-like function for the weapon, when Aang mentioned that it was hot and had the sensation of dissolving. But our hero felt that mana was a good match for the inner energy. On the other hand, he requested questioning Juranox about the length of time he intended to remain in this location. According to the blacksmith, 2 days should be sufficient. 2 days later, at sunset, the protagonist was supposed to meet him in the central park of the castle. A voice caught his ear on the way there. The protagonist was left perplexed as Ilya questioned both what he was doing and his purpose in being there. Our hero possessed the identical inquiry, as I sensed a sense of familiarity with the landscape outside of Central Park. It was just at this location that our hero first laid eyes on Ilya. That young lady concerned about the status of urine, I inquired about the young man's apologies, as he seemed to have altered the original narrative. A dismounting Ilya reminded him that wondered why he had come. In response, our hero said he needed to find a blacksmith. Because there were so many in the Rock family, she thought this strange. He wanted to recruit someone on his own, as Urine indicated. The girl said she would have lent a hand if he'd told her sooner, but our hero was already met a wonderful individual. On his way, he appeared. The young master was asked by Juranox how long he had waited. Our hero denied it, claiming he had come at the ideal moment. Someone stepped in and asked for the team leader as he introduced his fiancée Ilya. Their position was almost about to leave and was curious as to this stranger's identity. Introducing her fiancé, Rox, Ilya phoned Musk. A guy whispered the word dread over and over again. He couldn't believe he was seeing a Marquis Rox relative in such a place. Claimant to the position of 5th Night Division Commander of the Marcus family, Malone Musk, was his given name. The protagonist expressed his pleasure at finally meeting him. Thinking back, he realized he didn't need Musk to explain everything as he already understood enough. Put another way, Musk was a lifeless extra who seemed uninterested in the role. Kids got in the way of Musk and his knights just as they were making progress. The main character stepped in and an altercation ensued. Their romance started when Ellie showed there at the last possible second, halting the situation. However, what really mattered was the hero joins Ilya in combat and rescues her from a perilous circumstance. However, the protagonist remains elusive to him, yet again. Consequently, he is stuck. She must not perish. He will not allow it. He contacted the girl by phone and inquired about her whereabouts. Ilya has defended Asu Castle by saying that her knights were given orders to subdue the orcs since their numbers were increasing. Though in this scenario, our hero claimed to be in need of a favor. I doubted his motives because he insisted on going with her, though the protagonist stated that he was a trainee who wanted to gain experience in actual combat and put his abilities to the test. According to Ilya, it might be harmful. However, our hero gladly agreed, claiming his running skills were his strongest suit. As she thought, the girl halted. She gave her assent and asked Sir Mus to bring a horse. He made an effort to justify their journey by saying it wasn't a picnic and that they couldn't relax their defenses, not even against the orcs, particularly because he didn't feel any mana from P and bore no responsibility or interest in safeguarding anyone. Again, Sir Musk insisted it was a command and that he should have put down the phone and get things done. While Musk softly expressed his approval, he did mention that he would have everything ready in case of and given the command, he would carry it out without hesitation, his expression betraying his evil intentions. Both the main character and I gazed at silently with one another. She kept saying her fiancé should stay near since it was dangerous as the day went on. Poop was just taken in. He informed Jurinox obeyed the young master's command to hang on tightly. In this way, the army advanced. In the vicinity, moving further, Ilya declared that they would now split into fives in order to locate the orc settlement. Instead of launching an attack right away, they should wait and indicate if found. Once they split, she and her companions would go down that road. As the day wore on, they made progress until dusk. A soldier made the observation that the tracks were extremely hidden and quite distant. The sky was growing darker, and he needed a plan. There was a complete lack of for the time being, they would come back. Then, out of nowhere, the whole gathering was startled. A flare signal was being transmitted, and another one was also being transmitted along a different direction. Places. Ilya inquired about the number of sightings. He had not counted, but the urine FUD came to 4. At the helm set out on horseback for the northwest desert. Having opted to traverse that area first, Ilya made a discovery on coming up on time. Every one of her troops had died. The people in her entourage were shocked. The armor had also dissolved. When it finally reached them, they were taken aback. Their leader, Ilya, gave the order to advance toward the flare signal coming from the south. Consequently, they was moving quite quickly in that direction. Upon her arrival, she also noticed the same thing. She had a whole army of devoid of emotion. Urine cut her partner off, stating they couldn't travel at this moment, despite her warning that they should go to the next place. This puzzled Ilya, spoke the name of her spouse. One by one, the orcs were hunting the troops, as the protagonist warned, and they are completely outgunned at this stage. In order to gather forces there, they should give a flare signal and halt the operation. His commander ordered him to remain silent, asserting his lack of familiarity with the nuances of advancing in such a configuration. He insisted that a thug like him was to blame for the chaos. What Uran remembered from in the first novel. The main character was also implicated. The readers resented him for dictating that they consume sweet potatoes because of it, and developed post-traumatic stress disorder as a result. The protagonist instructed Musk to stop saying that Yura was ignorant about warfare and start quiet down. The soldier was taken aback, though Ilya denied it. He reportedly collapsed to the ground in agony. He told the subordinate to understand his position as she spoke to her fiancé. Musk grasped the situation and humbly asked for pardon, as our hero did nothing but observe. He looked over at Ilya and thought about how she had been so preoccupied with her own thoughts in the original story that she had ignored the protagonist. Oh, sure, advised her to make her own decision, questioning whether the moment had come. He made a valid point when he argued that Helia would have failed to act rationally in considering in such a case, they ought to promptly issue the command to gather the troops at the site indicated by the blue flare, emerging into the sky not long after noticeable far within the woods. The group's Yuren was present. Juranox gushed over the youthful master. He had taken action as per his desire, to which the protagonist responded that it was insignificant. The blacksmith assured them that the troops would return, but Ir predicted that maybe the vast majority troops would be unable to attend. He paused to think about the cook Karuta who was interacting with them. After phoning the young master, Juranox wanted to know what he eagerly anticipated. Protagonist, it was a serious battle. Subordinate, run in that direction, and then dialed squad leader, tell her to depart immediately because she ought to just do so. Helia waved her sword in the direction of a sound and raised an eyebrow in protest. A vast army, and a band of orcs advanced on them. Musk said it was a ridiculous some monsters. No. Elia felt responsible for their predicament and apologized to Urine, but she was confused. The narrator said it was suitable. On that spot, he reassured her they would not perish. Her mind raced as she wondered, fiancé, would suffice. He contacted agents and informed him that they would be putting their 2 days of practice to the test. By utilizing the artificial form to produce iron pellets of a dark hue, he inherited the body's 3-star ability but never got the chance to put it to the test, was the blast of black iron. Then, unleashing a bolt of lightning, he hurled the pellet in their direction, just touched the ball Orsak's axis and began to chortle until a detonation covered the whole region. There was a decline in the figures, even with the protagonist's single strike. Thinking about it, he waved his palm, causing the black iron blast to resurface. Said Agna's talents were energizing. The other orcs made the decision to charge the young man, but he repelled them, instantly sent the ball whizzing into the air, setting off yet another massive explosion nearby. His throwing object was a mystery to Ilya. According to the main character, they were black iron. I will go into detail on spheres later on. Having said that, there were far fewer orcs now. Ela wondered about the reason her army was fighting was so they could win. The remaining orcs should be easily vanquished now that they have their opportunity. Making progress fighting the monsters, Ilya succeeded in splitting one of their bodies in half. It took a lot of work, but her subordinate succeeded in attacking the other. Occupying one of the orc's perches was shocked, but then he saw a crimson figure staring back at him. Now, with a terrified expression on its face, the creature then seized his skull in its fist. A U-turn was made by Ilya and her soldiers. She wanted to know what it was. What a ridiculous proportions with that beast having detonated the orc. The main character believed it had materialized at last. Karuta was that guy, renowned orc soldier. They risked losing everyone if they didn't catch this haughty one today. The Karuta unleashed a rumbling sound that afflicted all those nearby. Grasping a surface with his blade, he sprang at Ilya. Her husband yanked her back and demanded to know why she wasn't moving. When the girl yelled out that she needed to duck, he yanked, shielding her from the force of the assault. According to him, they were on the brink of death. When Ilya saw her, she was gassed. Subordinates have no vitality. Furious, Karuta snarled at our hero. Just like that, he unleashed a deluge of black iron on his person. Karuta was unharmed and growled once more as it sped towards the augur's neck, before exploding with a bang. He was made an unintelligible noise as he approached the heroes. Assumed it was functioning properly. It resembled an orc in appearance, fighter, and its hide was rock solid. Angry that he dared to beat her staff, Elliot swore at him. Exactly like this. She vowed she would not forgive and sent out an aura of her blade. Afterwards, she unleashed her incredible skill speed. The orc warriors and her sword clashed in equal measure. They sparred for a while, but Karuta never budged, vigorously defending everything of it. Their team leader was praised by her subordinates, who thought she was amazing. Urine reasoned that, as one would expect from Ilya, the power of her sword queen attribute was too much. It was still early in the book, and she should not have thought she could provoke Karuta to this point. So much so that he sliced his skin and armor. The first time the monster's wrath hit, it captivated the girl. He was roared and manipulated his aura in a way that left Alia perplexed. Taking a sideways glance, Karuta and quickly maneuvered his blade, causing Ilya to make a block. Karuta vanquished me in the same manner as in the original tale, as the troops attended to their team captain. Despite how embarrassing it was, Ilya was unable to vanquish the monster. They were in danger if they stayed. But the hero charged headfirst into combat. Using its wild tongue, the orc yearned to defecate. At the same time, as main character clenched his fist around his dagger, ready to hurl it, directly targeting the beast, he unleashed his blast. With ease, Harua warded off the assault. Yor astutely predicted that the dagger hurled with the direct blast would be rendered useless with a single strike. The horrific beast tried to re-establish communication with the protagonist, but things got muddled. Observing a detail that concerns his shoulder pad of the armor. After the black iron explosion, which sent off a massive domino effect, there remained its leftovers. The Karuta was hit, and his right arm became immobile as a result. The main character in the first one he tossed was fictitious. The Karuta had been preoccupied with evading the direct hit to pay attention to the one coming from behind him. Despite the steely exterior, it appeared as though every part of it wasn't. He couldn't just toss objects at it since its vulnerability persisted in the fissure in its armor. Anxieties at the sight of the main character plots. Its natural aggression caused it to charge at him. A horizontal slash was its intended target, but Urain was able to dodge. The creature made multiple more failed attacks, each time thwarted. As he shifted his dagger, Urain inquired what it set out to accomplish. Another explosion struck the monster at that very moment. The protagonist claimed that its sole fear was this, but he was determined not to be caught off guard. Observing Jerinox, the orc pivoted. It then began to move its legs, while our hero yelled out a warning warning to the man. Quickly, Karuta raced over to meet the blacksmith. Our hero lashed out at the circumstance while channeling his inner strength. Savoring him was his only option. With the same amount of internal, his draconic treasure steps with as much energy as he could muster. The beast sprang at the blacksmith, but our hero averted his path, quickly caught up to, leaving a wake in their wake. After that powerful explosion, Karuta whirled around. What IA claimed was not possible. That acceleration was mind-blowing. The hero chose this moment to terminate the battle and summoned a one. The Tang clan's flower butterfly was one of their 4 concealed weapons. After that, he shot it at with a curved shot the orc uses. The butterfly approached the orc with a slow, careful flight. Ilya telephoned. The orc quivered in terror as it was struck with such beauty. It evaded every strike until the butterfly slipped out of its grasp. Despite its best efforts to take it away with its sword, pierced through its armor and made contact with its chest, evoking an orc's scream unlike any it had ever experienced, leading to the last detonation. Aliyah was taken aback as she observed urine, which seemed little anxious. Even though our hero had doubts, with that the bloody flower butterfly had so much energy that it could easily puncture the orc warrior. The experience was quite much. The battle was won, according to Musk, and he collapsed. It wasn't over yet, Islet said as he turned around. One could find less and fewer orcs. Her army was directed by her to eliminate them. After the young master rescued Duranox, the hero expressed his gratitude to him, considered that the first significant conflict had ended without incident. The hero approached Ilyat that night at the military base and asked if she took a beating. Responding negatively, she stated that she was not doing well. She couldn't protest though, because she owed him money. According to our hero, lending a hand would be okay, and it was understandable, considering her previous inquiry. The girl was perplexed because he didn't train in swordsmanship but in hidden equipment. It was verified by the main character, because his concealed weapons were the explosive sphere and the butterfly attached to it. To her, it seemed amazing. It had tremendous impact. It was difficult for her to accept, and you find it funny. He was certain that she had believed the sword to be the ultimate weapon during her entire life, but her views had only recently broadened. The captain was told by a knight that he had made a magical sack. Thanks to Ilya, stating that they should capture the leader, even if they can't find all the bodies at this moment. She slashed Karuta's body with her sword. Standing up, commenting on how enormous it was, they would have a hard time fitting it into the magic bag if they attempted to do so directly. According to Ilya, it was okay, designed specifically for protecting them from shame. Yet, they ought to come back now as darkness was approaching. After Musk met the captain, they continued on horseback. What happened to him used to be. The fire alarm had gone off quite some time ago. Claiming to have been ambushed by orcs far away, the man appeared perplexed. Due to the altercation, they were pushed back in time. Even though Ilya got it, she was still curious about the whereabouts of the other two. To Musk's response, they were vanquished, and the orcs proved to be more formidable than anticipated. While the knight attempted to convince the captain to let her see the corpses, the captain insisted on seeing them first. Shift the focus. Ilya kept barking out directions as he approached her. Just after that, he made an announcement on how he would clarify there. He took up position initially before trying to sneak up on Ilya with a dagger. The main character, however, stepped in. Musk collapsed on the floor. He insisted he was battling orcs, according to his urine, but he didn't appear to have any green blood on him. There was no mistaking his cooperation with the beasts, starting to divulge information. Musk was curious as to how he learned this. As if to demonstrate her point, Aya pulled her blade. She completely disregarded the man's attempt to insinuate that the Malone family had accomplished much in service to the Marcus family. She admonished him to cease, cutting yet again. The night went on in this vein. The young master was awakened by Germanox in the aristocratic house in Asu Castle, phoning him multiple times. He stood up and asked Urine what he needed. According to the blacksmith, lunchtime was approaching. In addition, he was to meet with Captain Elliot. The female, who was dressed in all black, asked her fiancé how he slept. The main character was completely perplexed. He was perplexed by that ensemble. Urine should be brought to her. IA said. House. She wanted to know whether he would be willing to accompany her because her father had specifically asked her to. From a close distance, the protagonist found her to be the most beautiful. He assured her that he would, without a doubt, marry the most beautiful woman in the world. Ilya promised to hang around until he left front of him, and he ought to prepare to depart. Began to think more clearly. She seemed much more receptive to him now that he was there. Once assisted her. Our heroine apologized to Ilya over the phone while they were outside. Lady Ironblood was praised by the onlookers outside. The honor went to Ilya, who vanquished the orc warrior on her alone. According to Urin, this honor was bestowed upon she inspired me because she persevered in the face of overwhelming odds, exactly as in the book. Also, some started yelling that he was incredibly dashing, and that he was Lord Urin, the Iron Mage. The hero couldn't make sense of this and came to the following. Military testimonies led to the proliferation of nicknames. Ilya unexpectedly summoned him, and he mistook his manipulation of metal spheres for magic, his person. She expressed her gratitude for being saved twice, something she had already mentioned. The main character claimed it wasn't necessary to bring it up. The experience was natural. At first light, the girl proceeded to the woods to collect the remains from the horrific battlefield, as she announced. Witnessing each and every one of them was devastating. Outside the woodland, suddenly, a realization hit her. They would still be where they are now if he hadn't intervened yesterday. Looking down, the main character with care. A stronger LA is her goal, so she vows to train harder. Without fail, she would outshine everyone and never lose another battle. Even when Urine believes her skill has finally developed, the sorcerers set up the portal to the territory of Marcus. Her father dispatched family mages, according to Ilya, because it wasn't far. They need to meet up soon, because centrally located within the entrance, the sorcerers started casting spells, and eventually they accomplished teleportation. Using Duranox with P were shocked to hear this. It had been some time since he had paid her a visit, Ilya said. It seemed like the landscape shifted in an instant, according to our hero, experiencing some vertigo. Did every noble family own such a massive mansion? Gironox wondered. So, it appeared as though the main character was invited to a dinner. The main character in the original tale could only eat the Marquise's chair and suit on a daily basis. But now, for the first time he would experience hot cuisine. As he greeted his son-in-law, the Marquise instructed Yer to simply sit since no ceremony was required. Even though he attempted to bow, unfazed, the young man surrendered with Ilya across from her. Because she was his daughter before they were fiancés, Marcus felt obligated to express his gratitude to him for saving his life. A life lived by Ilya. According to our hero, it was a necessary evil that he had to perform. They were then served their food. The hero eagerly anticipated its disclosure. The chine soup was a family specialty for the Marquises. The Marquis claims that, like the Rock family, they had a secret recipe and a custom of eating churn after a fight. He ought to savor it, therefore, and in an effort to persuade himself of his own abilities, Urine thanked him for the food. In the middle of their meal, the Marquise interrupted to inquire about their wedding plans. After the protagonist asked the Marquise about his daughter, he clarified that it was about her. The P assumed it was a test. Even after rescuing his daughter, Marquise's affection for him remained at a -10. This suggests that he loathed him. As a result, he said he would if he could marry now. Aaliyah would have been humiliated. According to the protagonist, he was not able to obtain the family. People looked down on him because of his unruly hair and troubled past. He would undergo a transformation in order to earn Ilya's respect, and once if he turned into hair, he'd marry her. After Mark heard about this, many wanted to know if he felt it was feasible. Many thought his little brother was brilliant. Can you honestly believe he could outstrip him and transform into hair? He was definitely competent, according to Urine. He would back Mark up and said that the reports were true, that he had changed, and that he would laugh it off. Yet he altered the topic, noting that a message had come from Wellington prior to Urine's arrival. The Rock's family had heard about him before, and someone had told him about it. Magical means of communication. The protagonist raised doubts about his father's statement, prompting the Marquise to suggest that they should have a conversation following lunch. The main character only expressed her gratitude and observed Ilya while she ate, perplexed by her persistent gloom. Whatever the case may be, Marcus seems to have been positively impacted by his performance. Marcus, who was in a different room, started talking. A sorcerer brought the orb to the home of the Rock and began to cast the likeness of the Lord. The main character mistakenly believed it was a video call or projection. While the father cursed the brat, the young guy pleaded with him for forgiveness and asked if he could had sustained injuries somewhere, and the main character rejected the idea. Quickly interested in verifying whether the rumor that he had preserved Ilya and vanquished a member of the orc army, the main character said that he had simply been lucky with his father's help. Expressing his want to know when he could expect to receive the information upon his return, he made the decision to make your return the following day. To the young man's horror, his father had warned him to bring his sibling with him when he came. Marquis stated that Urine depart early tomorrow, but it would be beneficial if he remained for a couple of extra days. Urine expressed his desire to do so. On the other hand, he had a task. It was unfortunate, but the Marquis assured him he would make arrangements for a magical portal so that he might travel in comfort. The P let out a small sigh before deciding to decline. Regardless of his gratitude, he needed to practice himself to better his abilities because he had reached a certain level, and it would probably shouldn't unwind using a teleport. He had changed for the better. According to the Marquise, his anticipation of finding just how potent his P would grow grew. He was thanked by the protagonist. That response and the subsequent urination ruckus made Ilya smile, so she must have enjoyed it. Beyond that, the protagonist deliberated over whether or not to utilize the teleport belonging to the Marcus family. According to Gironox, the other route to the capital was via Urine, and the road had declared their intention to visit the location. Prior to that, our hero stated that they had to make a pit stop. Was the massive mountain adjacent to the point recognized, where the dragon's slumber lies? Gironox expressed his curiosity about the place and said he wanted to visit it before going to the forge. Is it also going to be the young master's wish upon a star? But our hero flat out refused. On the contrary, you would pretend to be the original protagonist and steal a valuable item that you thought he or she would find. In the long run, they persisted in making their way through that area. Dragons lived in a cave known as the Dragon's Clearing, back in the day. Even though it was early, his subordinate saw that there were a lot of people. His question was on whether or not the protagonist could actually find a treasure there, claimed it was untrue and that there were many hidden truths in the world. So Gironox should investigate. After Gironox agreed to accompany them to the mountaintop, they set out, went by while the blacksmith groaned, and said nothing was there. Maybe this was it, the protagonist thought to himself. The doorway he possessed designed to resemble a vehicle door. Inquiring about the presence of others, he cast his gaze around. After much deliberation, our hero chose to get in, simply open the door. The door took form out of nowhere and swung open laterally, shocking them. Gironox remarked though it seemed insurmountable, our hero yet resolved to dive in. Inside, they strolled until once more, the stone hit. The blacksmith made the comment that he was surprised by how light it was there. Warned him against touching the gemstone after he saw it. The door to a trap would open. When Gironox asked what sort of trap it was, our hero clarified that the whole area would likely engulf in flames. Gironox should remain close to him because there were numerous traps in the area and, with no hesitation, the blacksmith gave in. They approached an altar that faced it. Gironox exclaimed its incredibleness, but it was surpassed by all. The protagonist speculated as to whether Gironox was aware of its secret meaning. He sensed the power of the false dragon behind that wall, as the clearing where it ended was located. People. The two of them were now the objects of their prayers. The main character insisted on checking out the loot nevertheless, so they pushed the handle under the altar and unbelievable, according to Gironox, as the entrance swung open, there were 3 receptacles filled with gold coinage. The P retrieved a container as if it were worth more than the currency. The Jade of the Warrior, which had a regenerative power, was paramount to fortify oneself. As they advanced, Juronox wondered what direction they should go. Urine clarified that it was to the enchanted tower located at Jizu Castle. I heard from the blacksmith that there were still a lot of people praying out front even at this late hour. Subsequently, the youth became aware of a soothing aura and gentle pressure. The author made use of artist's gaze fixed on that lady, but nothing transpired and our heroine assumed her arrival was postponed until later in the book. What on earth is that? Juronox asked. The heroine pondered the source of her aura's immense power. For the time being, he was powerless over her presence.